All right, we're in Ecclesiastes chapter 6, unless you forgot, or in case you forgot, or weren't here. Might have forgot I wasn't here. Huh? That's funny. All right, we're going to do a little update. See, something I wanted to ask. Glenn sent me a text. He says, hey, I'm not going to be there tonight. I'm not feeling great. So we need to hold him up in prayer. He says you can let everyone know that Tracy's doing better since she had that tooth pulled. Still a little sore, but feeling much better. So, was it a front tooth? I can only hope. Oh, it's a back tooth. I was hoping it was a front tooth. It's the kind of brother I am. Yeah, right on. Hope you can hear it. Hope you're listening, Tracy. We love you, even without your front tooth, especially without your front tooth. Glad you're feeling better. Oh, she's going to kill me, but that's all good. I don't mind. I didn't want to live forever here. All right, let's get into this. This book is kind of a downer, isn't it? You know, as we're going along, Solomon's like, life stinks. You know, every chapter so life has been terrible. It's not getting better. But anyway, we'll start reading. Chapter 6, verse 1. There's an evil which I have seen under the sun, and it's common among men. A man to whom God has given riches and wealth and honor, so that he lacks nothing for himself of all he desires, yet God does not give him the power to eat of it, but a foreigner consumes it. This is vanity, and it is an evil affliction. If a man begets 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with goodness, or indeed he has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better than he, for it comes in vanity and departs in darkness, and its name is covered with darkness. Though it has not seen the sun or known anything, this has more rest than that man, even if he lives 1,000 years twice, but has not seen goodness. Do not all go to one place? All the labor of man is for his mouth, and yet the soul is not satisfied. For what more has the wise man than the fool? What does the poor man have? Who knows how to walk before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of desire. This also is vanity and grasping for the wind. Whatever one is, he has been named already, for it is known that he is man. And he cannot contend with him who is mightier than he, since there are many things that increase vanity. How is man the better? For who knows what is good for a man in life? All the days of his vain life which passes like a shadow, who can tell a man what will happen after him under the sun? Huh? That's uplifting. I know. How you feeling now, kids? You know? I know. I read this and I cry. I know it is. There's always somebody worse off than you, yeah. Yeah. So we go back to verse 1. You know, it talks about there's a cruel irony in life. It's kind of a burden to men. And it concerns a man who God has given all his heart could desire in the way of riches, wealth, and honor, but God does not give him the capacity to enjoy them. Solomon is blaming God here for not giving him the ability to enjoy his wealth. Then the man dies, and a stranger gets all he worked for. By this account, like we were saying earlier, life's pretty empty. He's talking about a guy he's just living to work and gain and get more and more and more. We've all met those guys, especially when we get a factory and we see these guys that are sucking up all the overtime. It's all, they're just banking all this money, working their tails off. For what? Well, when I retire, well, Then they retire and they live a couple years. We've seen this over and over again. I've watched guys just maxing out that overtime. Got to have it. It's like, knock yourself out. I'm going home. Oh, man, if you work, man. This is what your checks will look like. Yeah, see ya. For me, it's just kind of, I don't get it. I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but we get into verse 3. If a man has 100 children and lives many years, it says, even if a man has a huge family and lives for a long time, all his riches are nothing if he doesn't enjoy them, for he doesn't have a decent burial at the end of his life. The preacher, Solomon here, says that a stillborn child is better off than he is. Yeah, that's like, wow, dude. Really? Yeah, I mean, how do you really tell me how you feel here? The untimely birth comes in vanity and departs in anonymity. Though the stillborn child never sees the sun or gets to experience anything, they enjoy more rest than the miser. This guy is just packing it away. Which is, you think about it, it's true. They don't have to deal with all the stress of life. Verse 6, even if this miser lives 1,000 years twice over, what good is it if he's never experienced and enjoyed the good things of life? He shares the same fate as the stillborn child by going to the grave. And verse 7 talks about a man's reason, his main reason for working. What do we always say? Guys, I'm feeding the family, man. Working to feed the family. You've heard that your whole life. Probably said it a few times. So our main reason for working is to feed ourselves and to feed our family and take care of our family. But his soul, it says his soul is never satisfied. The more he makes, the more he wants. He chases contentment but never finds it. And our society has fed that lie to us for years and years and years. We've all been on that boat, been on that road, as men and women. We're working because we have to work. Husband and wife have to work to maintain a home. Can't just be one person anymore, hardly. And all we hear is those same things. Man, you need a new boat. Need a brand new truck. Need this house. Need this, all these things. Yeah, I know, I just bought a motorcycle. Don't bring it up. You're supposed to listen, not talk. It's my turn. I'm teasing you. I love you, baby. I'm dead. But, hey, I'm just preaching. I'm not the one. I'm trying to live a good life. No, I'm just kidding. I am. Yes, I'm preaching to myself, honey. I just got to this chapter a short time ago after I bought the bike. Never seen it before. Sorry, Lord, please forgive me. I might have seen it. I'm not sure. I didn't pay attention to it for sure. So, on this journey, the wise man has no advantage over the foolish guy. Right? So if the poor man knows how to deal with life better than the rest of the people, he still has no advantage. Because we all die. So it's better to be content with what we have than to continually chase after more. It's like grasping at the wind. Verse 9, which, we understand that. Getting into verse 10 and 11, it says, whatever one is, he has been named already. For it is known that he is man, and he cannot contend with him who is mightier than he. Since there are many things that increase vanity, how is man the better? Whichever one is rich or poor, he's wise or foolish, old or young, he's already been given the name of man, right? Or Adam. This could also mean it is known what man is. Our understanding is limited. So the quest for great knowledge is foolish, since no one will find out anything that will change the basic truths of life. We're seeking after knowledge. We're seeking after things. Our Solomon was here for sure. And he goes through that whole process, but it doesn't change any basic truths of life. There's no great understanding at the end. In verse 12 says, no one knows what is best for him. This vain life that has gone like a shadow passing, and no one knows what will happen on this earth after we're gone. Our lives are short. We have no idea. Now, he's not talking in a spiritual sense here, obviously. He's talking in the physical sense. You don't know what's best for us. We really don't. We try to make decisions the best we can as we go, right? But our life is over in a short amount of time, and we're never going to know what happens after we're gone. We can stockpile all this stuff to give to somebody we don't know, right? And then when we're gone, which we went through that in a couple of chapters ago, then when we're gone, we have no idea what's going on. So here, chapter 6, it kind of ends on a bad note. Man has no idea what's best for him while here on earth. Well, in chapter 7, Solomon comes up with some things that are good and some things that are better. So let's go starting into chapter 7. It says, verse 1, a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. Better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that is the end of all men, and the living will take it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by a sad countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of the mourning, but the heart of the fools is in the house of mirth. It's better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the songs of fools. For like the cackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity. Surely oppression destroys a wise man's reason, and a bribe debases the heart. The end of a thing is better than its beginning. The patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Do not hasten in your spirit to be angry, for anger rests in the bosom of fools. And do not say, why were the former days better than these? For you do not inquire wisely concerning this. So we're going to stop right there. Let's go back to verse 1. Number one thing that's good and better is a good name is better than precious ointment. I remember as a kid, my dad would tell me, well, he wouldn't tell me, he would warn me. I don't really think there was any conversation in this. But he would say, listen, you carry my name, boy. So whatever you do reflects on me. Don't be dragging our family name in the mud. And that's kind of the tone he gave it. So I pretty much knew that you do something to tarnish our family name, you're probably not going to have it for long, you know. But it's so true, because a good name represents our character, who we are, right? And that's of greater value than this precious ointment, you know. And I'm sure this precious ointment costs quite a bit, whatever it happens to be. But your name is better than riches. Solomon says that the day of your death is better than the day of your birth. Well, for us as believers, that's a fact. That is a fact. Verse 2, he says that it's better to go to a funeral home than go to a buffet. Right? Funerals make us contemplate our existence. We question our lives, and then we start prioritizing things. no matter where we're at in our Christian walk or non-Christian walk for some people, when we go to a funeral, the reality of death slaps us in the face. And we think about it. We think about our family members. We focus on our relationship with God a little bit more, maybe. But buffets, on the other hand, go to a feast, yeah, I mean, death is short. If you continue to go on a regular basis, death will probably it would be speeding up to meet you. But he's talking about death. It's the end for all men here on earth. And we're made to look at it, and we're forced to consider our own mortality. Especially in the last few years, I think we've all really had to take a hard look at it because we've lost a lot of friends and family. And it's been a hard couple years for most all of us. Verse 3, sorrow is better than laughter, for by a sad countenance the heart is made better. You know, as you're reading that and you think, why is sorrow better than laughter? Well, when you think about it, our experiences that we go through and the sorrow we go through over situations, we kind of develop an understanding for other people. We understand the heartache that someone feels that have been through some of the same things we've been through, and it gives us an opportunity to be of comfort to someone else. Because there's no words that are going to take away any pain, but the understanding that, you know what, someone else has been through this. They get it. They know. They felt everything I'm feeling. There's some comfort in that. Doesn't stop anything. It just lets you know that, you know what, I'm not alone. And that's a really good feeling. When facing a death, the one who is wise will be quiet and respectful. Verse 4. The fool that has a hard time facing death with seriousness, they cover up their hurt with laughter. Try to push it aside and not face it. That's a foolish thing for us to do. And I think, I use humor a lot in my life. And sometimes I think I've used it in that kind of situation where you're masking something. I'd rather laugh than worry about it. You know what I mean? And not that you're not going to face it when you have to or need to, but I don't have to right now. You know what I mean? And sometimes it makes a gray area, all right, in your life, you know. So when I was reading through this, I was like, yeah, sometimes I just, I need to reevaluate a few things. In verse 5, it's better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. Hearing a rebuke is one of the hardest things for us, I think, as human beings to deal with. But when you know it's coming from someone that cares, it might be like, I don't really want to hear this, but you know it's true. I've been in that situation a lot in my life. And but taking that criticism from a godly person and allowing their words to be instructions to our lives, not that we're going to just grab onto it right that second and run off with it, in victory, but to listen and take it to heart. That's just maturity. But then the other side of that, it's better than to take that rebuke or to hear that rebuke than to hear the song of fools, because you'd always know somebody says something to somebody, giving them a little bit of constructive criticism. Oh, wait, I got to go tell my buddy over here because that made me mad. Well, your buddy's going, oh, yeah, they're just an idiot. Don't listen to them. Well, here comes the song of the fool, right? They mock the one that brings the warning. That's giving godly counsel, right? And you just, weak Christians are just looking for somebody to side with them. So I don't have to face this issue I have in my life. And when we're baby Christians, that happens a lot because that's still that carnal nature. And I don't care. I mean, even mature Christians have a hard time hearing stuff. So there's a lot of stuff in here that makes you stop and think. Made me stop and think. In verse 6 says, "For the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity." All right, let's think about this for a minute. We are a group of people that love bonfires. Well, everybody I hang around with. I'm supposed to go to work, but I like bonfires. It's yeah, right. So it's talking about burning thorns. Now we know that those bushes, thorn bushes, there's not much to them. Now when you burn that stuff, when it's dry, it'll crackle and pop and make noise, but there's not much heat coming out of there. There's not much substance to it. You're not getting a lot of heat. You're not getting any length of burn. It goes up pretty fast. And that's just like the laughter of a fool. There's a lot of noise, but there's not a whole lot of effectiveness. Verse 7. "Surely oppression destroys a wise man's reason, and a bribe debases the heart." So even a wise man can act like a fool when he becomes an oppressor, loses his sense of self-control. And those who indulge in bribery, they corrupt their own mind. These things ruin a man's character. In verse 8, Solomon says here that the end of a thing is better than the beginning. Maybe there's a sense of completion. Then he says that the patient spirit is better than the proud of spirit. And we know that patience is a virtue, something to attain. And we know pride's destructive. It's something that we should avoid. In verse 9, "Do not hasten in your spirit to be angry, for anger rests in the bosom of fools." Here, Solomon warns us about having a short fuse and being easily angered. This lack of self-control is the characteristic of a fool. That's something I battled for a long time. Growing up and as a young adult, is a short fuse. And when I went in the military, I think my dad sat back and thought, well, that ought to cure him. Not really, it didn't, but, you had a little bit more self-control, but you knew when to let it loose and when to let it hang on to it a little bit. But we shouldn't, it tells us, be slow to anger because it hurts our character. Verse 10, "Do not say, why were the former days better than these? For you do not inquire wisely concerning this." Don't live in the past. I can't tell you how many times I was like, man, when I was growing up, it seemed like it was a whole lot better than it is right now. Well, I had zero responsibility. I mean, I'd feed the cows. But I had no responsibility. Dad took care of it all. Those were the best days of my life. As far as responsibility goes. It wasn't rough, right? There's times things were, but compared to having to be the dad and be responsible and go out and work and pay the bills and do all these things, yeah, it was a piece of cake. But those days weren't much different than these days, except for in these days, we can pretty much clearly see the evil that was still present then. It was just covered up. We didn't see it as much. It was unusual, and now it's, just how it is. But it says, don't live in the past. Those days are Those days were as evil as this present day. We just didn't see it as clearly as we do today. It says, for you do not inquire wisely concerning this. I think it's just kind of a flippant thing that's said. And people just presume that the earlier times were better. It's about 20 minutes to 8, so I think we'll stop here. And we'll pick up next week with verse 11 and move ahead. That way we can have some time to get into prayer. I think that's something we should not ever neglect as a body of believers. And there's a lot of things that we need to pray about. We got election coming up here soon. I don't know if anybody's looked over the proposals or not, but they're all trash. Every stinking one of them. Every one of them is a false flag. So if you don't believe me, read them, but read them slowly. Because there's some verbiage that if you read it at a normal pace, you'll miss. Like voter ID or signature. Or signature. What do you mean, or signature? You don't need an ID? It says ID or signature. And they're trying to schmooze you at the beginning, going, "Oh, I want to make sure our vets and our older people can get their ballots mailed in." They've never had a problem doing that. My whole life, I was in the military. If you wanted to vote, you had plenty of time. You were told. You see, the government owns you at that point in time. They let you know, hey, guess what? If you want to vote, you got to have this in by whatever this date is. This is where you go look. We always had that opportunity. It wasn't not a big deal. Well, they try to make it now. They're trying to go, well, these guys are missing out. They're not missing out on nothing. Don't listen to that garbage. It's a lie. They put all this stuff out there to distract you, and then they put this little thing at the bottom where they're going to screw us all over, So anybody can vote, as long as you have a signature. Well, I can sign my name. I don't know, is that X? Does that work? I don't know. So we know Proposal 3 is garbage. We read that a couple weeks ago. That's just let me murder babies up into the moment they're born or afterwards. Take all their parental rights away. Yep. 3 is trash. 2 is trash. 1 is trash. So people don't need to get fooled into thinking, oh, this is a great thing. It's not. It's a bait and switch because their verbiage is deceitful. Because I was reading through 2, and I'm like, oh, this ain't bad. And I go, whoa, wait. Let me read this one more time. You do the same thing? Let me read this one more time. Oh, right, exactly. Yeah, you're 3/4 way through it. You're like, hey, I think I could. No, I can't. I still can't. No, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. If there's anything in there I disagree with, morally or ethically, no, it's not. Yeah. They don't need to do that. No, there's plenty of time. You got really? It's every 2 years. Well, that's the whole thing. Well, then at the very bottom, here's another thing. I get done with that, and I'm like, this is stupid. Well, then it gets down to the bottom, and it says, the only people that will be allowed to audit the election are the electoral workers. No, that's not an audit. You're right, Ron. That is the nuts running the nut house. It don't work that way. That's where cheating comes in big time. Because if you're going to come and audit me, if I can audit myself, I'm never going to do anything wrong. If I wrote my own reviews to get a raise, I'd be the highest paid guy in the shop, right? Personally, I probably wouldn't be, but for the most part, that's what's going to happen. You know, because I'd try to be as honest as I could. That's just how it works. That's human nature. We know that. And these idiots are like, oh, guess what? We're going to put this in the Constitution so that no one can come in and give us an audit because we're the only auditors, the only people that should have the right to audit. It's like you just gave the keys to the kingdom to the dumbest person on the planet. You don't do that. I mean, there should be some serious accountability. They should only be able to go in there and they can do the voting, do the work, right? Do the work at the voting booths. Get all that done. You're done. You leave. You don't count nothing. You don't. All you do is you turn in your paperwork and you walk out. Somebody else comes in, goes through all your stuff, looks for any issues. That's accountability. There's no accountability if I'm accountable to myself. I mean, that's common sense. But you got yahoos out here that don't have enough brain power to look at that and go, I don't see the issue. I just don't get it. It's stupid. And then proposal 1, remind me, I read them all over again tonight, and I can't remember what one was. Oh yeah, the term limits. Yeah, here's the thing. You can sit there for 14 years now. Or was 14. But see, you had to switch because you only got two. You get 3 terms, 2-year terms for the Senate, and 2 4-year terms for the House. But with this new idea that they come up with, you can do 12 straight. So I can do 12 straight in the House or 12 straight in the Senate. Yes, you don't have to flip. 12 total, right? But you don't have to be in one or the other. You can stay in the same. Read that again because that's what I got out of it. No. You just do 12. You can do 12 in one, whichever one you're in. Used to be you could only do 6, and then you'd have to be elected into the House. Well, with this, you can do 12 all the way through in the Senate or 12 in the House. And I'm like, whoa. After 2 years, you knuckleheads seem to forget about your constituents. You seem to forget who voted you in and what your policies you stood on after the first time around. You start going, oh, wait a minute. These new guys start going, hey, these people pay good money for me to listen to them. These guys over here that elected me, they ain't paying me squat. See, I don't like that one at all. There was another. That was the second. Yeah. There was something about signatures. There was some other stuff in there that didn't sound bad. The transparency. Right. Well, even if you're in debt, but also what special interest groups are paying you, how much you got from them. See, that part's all good. But if they can stay in that office for 12 years, you're in the Senate because they're thinking this. Well, you're in the Senate. You're only there for few years. It takes a lot of time to push things through, to get things to mature, to make them law. That's the part I don't want. I want somebody else coming in and looking at what you wrote. Because now I can have this whole corrupt government. All these people have been in here for a long time, and they're pushing all these things and making these laws. And now what do we got? We got a bunch of corrupt politicians. We got a corrupt government. We got it right now, but it just gets worse. It gives them more time to put into place their garbage. And I want some new blood in there to look at that and go, red flag. This ain't good. Instead of, everything's fine. You'll be fine. And then the next thing you know, because the way you look at proposal 3, And that kind of mentality, because none of us in here are getting any younger. And that kind of mentality is, all right, when we're no longer useful, then they're like, well, you don't really need to be here. We're not paying to keep you around. We're already kind of there. Yeah, it's been doing that for a long time, yeah. And yeah, they're supposedly intelligent people, you know. But that's where it's going, you know. Yeah, we have no more worth. We're gonna get rid of you. Unless, you know, you're the one with the big bucks, then you sit up there and do whatever you want. You dictate who lives and who dies. So, but anyway, that's my soapbox. I have a real disdain for nasty, stinking people in government. I've always had an issue with authority. But, truthfully, but yeah, that stuff just, it just gets me all fired up. So we need to tell people, you know, like we've talked about before, we need to get the word out there. And whatever influences you have, man, put out there. Because people are ignorant. Because you know how it is. They don't even look at this stuff. They don't read this. How many years I went to the ballot box, how I knew about the proposal was I just sat down and read it. I didn't look ahead of time. I didn't look at who was really running. Yeah. Yeah. And right. And you miss a lot of stuff. Yeah. So it's they're shady. Shady. So we need to pray. I'm going to shut this off.